Tonight, we have a study question that we will be bringing the word for. And study question talks about intimacy. And we will be understanding tonight better what intimacy means and how it affects every aspect of our lives. And so, First Lady's got a word before I get started, but it's about intimacy, and intimacy is so important in every aspect of our lives, every relationship, everything that we touch, everything that we do, everything we say must be accompanied by the ability to want to get closer to someone, to get closer to those who are around you. But intimacy is so important in ministry. So,
as we started looking up this word intimacy, and I know a lot of us have heard it, and remember, intimacy is just not between couples. We're talking about intimacy in your relationships with family, intimacy in your relationship with friends, intimacy if you're married with your spouse, or intimacy with God, okay? That comes first for everything else to even, in order for it to work out. And so intimacy, and I'm sure you all have heard this, intimacy means into me, see. You can see into me, intimacy. Into me, see. And so what intimacy does, intimacy is a connection with someone else. You can see into them and they can see into you, okay? Into me, see. Intimacy. It requires letting someone in close enough to see all your hidden secrets and all those hidden places. Intimacy requires trust with someone. You cannot have intimacy with a friend if you don't trust them. See, people try to make it on a spouse relationship, but if you have a close friend that you can trust with your secrets, that's intimacy. To see into that person, to see their heart, and then they give you their heart. It's a heart-to-heart thing. Into me, can you see into me? And can I see into you? It means you're willing to let your wall down, to let your guard down. You cannot let your guard down just for anybody. That other person has to have the intimacy part where that trust is in order for you to let your guard down and to trust them with your secrets. Everybody can't do it. Everybody's not. Now, God has designed everybody for intimacy, but everybody don't have it. And it can only come with God. The mixing of one heart into another heart so you can see into each other. In other words, if I'm going through something, and that's where the spirit of discernment comes in, you're going to be able to, when I tell you, you're going to be able to feel my heart. Sometimes I can look into people's eyes and I know exactly where they are because that's that intimacy from me that I can see into them. Okay? Is that coming across? Can you understand that? You have to have the discernment of spirit. Now that's in the spiritual realm. I'm talking natural. But it starts in the spirit realm, okay? So you have to have that intimacy part in order to even see into the other person. A heart-to-heart thing. That way when I give you my heart, talking on a natural level now, and I've got maybe something going on and I'm talking to just a friend, and I tell you my problems, you should be able to carry my heart. Because you have the into me, you can see into me. You're already carrying intimacy. See, it starts here. You can't carry it for somebody else if you don't have it, because you got to know yourself first. So you can see yourself first, and then you can see me. If you can't see yourself, you can't have intimacy for nobody else. It starts here first. Intimacy, it means you have to be transparent, and sometimes being transparent, people feel exposed. And sometimes when you feel exposed, you don't have anybody to catch you when you're exposing yourself and you feel alone and you don't know what to do with that. That's why it's important to have somebody else that carries intimacy in their heart. because it will leave you hanging. I can say it like that's a little bit clearer. It will leave you hanging if somebody else doesn't have intimacy, because you're trying to give them your heart, but they're not equipped enough with the see into me inside of them to carry what you're saying. And so they can't help you. With relationships and families, I can only talk about it because I know how I am with my family. With my girls, I'm very passionate with them. I'm constantly touching them. They're constantly kissing on me. I kiss them. We say I love you all the time. Even if it's through a Marco Polo, even if it's through a text, we're constantly telling each other how much we love them. That's intimacy. You have to, see, you can't have intimacy with, say you have intimacy with God and don't have it in the natural. So is the spiritual, so is the natural. They go hand in hand, and you see so many couples even that are disconnected. People don't talk anymore. You know, I guess because everything is so digital with your cell phones and everything. And I don't see parents touching their children. I don't see parents having a conversation with their children. I see parents fussing and arguing and hitting, and I see abuse, but I don't see the conversation that parents are supposed to have with children. I don't see the conversation that friends are supposed to have, because I can't, even me and my husband, when we go out, we're talking, we're laughing, we're best friends. And it's not just because we were friends before we got married. I have friends in my life that I have an intimate relationship with because I can trust them. See, you got to catch this in your spirit, because people want to put intimacy in a box and think it's just for couples. But for couples, you can't have a relationship without it. Because if you're a couple and you don't have intimacy, the relationship will die. Oh, you can survive in it, but you will only be existing, and there will be nothing there, because it's just like you will be talking and everybody goes through the motions. I'm talking couples now. And the mother is taking care of the children, doing her household duties. The dad is going out and making a living as he should. The mother is fixing the dinner. She puts on her face for the children and everything. But there is a disconnect when there is no intimacy. You're going through the motions, but you cannot see into me and I can't see into you. Now that's for couples. But it also works in real relationships. And I'm very careful, and I've taught my daughters the same. You will see pictures of them on Facebook where they hang out a lot together. They're intimate with one another. That's what that's called. When you see them, they're very intimate. I taught them that. I said, listen, Daddy and I are not going to always be here, so you have to learn to get along. We will have no fussing and fighting. You have to get along and love each other. And so they have become intimate with one another. It is such a beautiful thing, because they can trust each other. If they can't tell it to mama, they can tell it to each other. And they're not required to tell me all of their secrets. But I said, you can't tell me, tell each other, and hold each other and hold each other up. That's what intimacy is about. Can you see into me? Can I give you my secrets? And when I give you my secrets, what do you do with them? It starts at home. If you're beating up children at home, if you're talking to each other like crap, that's what I was telling somebody the other day. There is no intimacy in the house. Intimacy has peace. If there's chaos in the house, there is no intimacy. Hashete. Come on, Sata. He just dropped that in my spirit. So I'll take that, God. If there is chaos in the house, there is no intimacy. You can be single and have chaos in the house. I'm sorry, Pastor. I didn't know God was going to give me all this. You can be single with no intimacy in the house. With chaos in the house, and you've left God, and there's chaos and there's confusion in the house. There is no intimacy. Now that's on a spiritual level. There is no intimacy between you and God, because somehow Satan has slipped in and intimacy has left. It didn't mean you didn't have it at first, but it has left. So it's all how you treat people. Intimacy. Intimacy in relationships means in marriage, with friends, with family. It means that you have become so comfortable with that person. You're so relaxed and you don't mind being transparent. If I see a child that can't talk to their parents, that's a problem for me, because it means that mother has not shown them intimacy, and there is no way for them to open up, because they don't know what they're going to get back. It's in a lot of households. My daughters sometimes tell me too much. No, y'all don't. I'm just kidding. Don't y'all stop talking. We talk about a lot. They can trust me with their secrets because they know I've heard it all. And they know there's no judgment because when they talk to mama or talk to daddy, they walk into the no judgment zone. Intimacy. Think about it. Think about if you're single. Is there intimacy in your house with you and God? Think about if you live in a home with family. Is there intimacy in the household or is there chaos? Is there backbiting? Is there talking about? Does everybody get along? Is there intimacy? Do you see into the people that you stay with? Do they see into you? And do you handle each other's hearts delicately? Intimacy. You thoroughly enjoying being around the people that you're intimate with. I love my babies. I love me some them. You enjoy it. You long to be with them. You can't wait to see them. Even if you stay with them every day. And I've got my grandbaby almost every day. Every time I see his face is a joy. Intimacy. This is because we just can't say, oh, we love them because they are family, or we love them because they are friends. Intimacy is a deep thing. It's a root to intimacy. It's not just a surface thing. It's something that where the roots are, it goes deep down into the ground. Keshanta. You don't need no secrets because it's a heart thing. Being tied together, heart to heart. And when leadership is tied together, heart to heart, it flows down to the body. Can you see into me? Intimacy. Pastor, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes. And what the First Lady was saying, I feel the same as with my daughters, and I'm now passing it on to the young men in this church, that intimacy is not something that's just between females, husband and wife. It's between men too. And we as men come together and we get intimate, and we hug each other, we hold each other, and we talk to each other in ways that, are gentle. And we also, give ourselves our secrets. Talked about secrets, and we talk about past things. But that's intimacy. That's what we're going, and what we have to have it in the church. Now, go to the first slide. Let's look at the question. A relationship without intimacy, how does it survive? And First Lady said this. Oh, it can survive. It can make it. A relationship is there, but it's dysfunctional. It's not functioning properly. It's something wrong. It's something there's a broken part in it. And I'm thinking about my radio in my car right now. Right now, my radio in my car is dysfunctional. It plays music. It plays a CD, and but you can't change the volume. You can't do this. You can't. Once it starts playing, it just plays. You got to keep letting it go. So right now it's dysfunctional. There's a broken part. And when our relationships get to the point where they're dysfunctional, it's because there's a broken part. There's something missing in the relationship. Let's look at what intimacy means. Intimacy is a contact of a very close, personal, and private nature that is developed through a long association or being consistently familiar with over a long period of time. And if you want intimacy with your family and husband and wife or whoever God has in your life, you first got to get it started with God. It begins with Him first. Once you lock onto Him in intimacy, you can get true intimacy through God, with God, then you can get intimacy down here. You can get a functional relationship. Dysfunctional. This is what First Lady was talking about. Is there chaos in your house? Dysfunctional means poor and unhealthy behavior and attitudes toward others. In other words, not functioning well. Everybody's not doing their function. Everybody's not on their post to do. the mother should be in control, and the children should be subject to the rule of the house, and everybody should be coming in and treating each other with respect and honor. It should be happening, but when it's dysfunctional, it's a poor and unhealthy behavior and attitudes toward each other. The one that you should be the closest with, you have no functionality. It's dysfunctional, and you're at each other's throat. Chaos. But if you want to be functional, if you want your relationships functional, they have to begin with intimacy with the Father. They got to begin with God. Functional means used for development or maintenance of a larger whole, the group. So if your relationships are functional, God will use you through intimacy to develop or maintain the body of Christ that you're in. He will use you to develop and to maintain the larger whole. So I'm just one part, but if I'm walking around in intimacy, I'm drawing people into me, I'm loving on people, I'm helping people, and once they walk away from me, they feel good. And so I'm going to hug somebody. I know I never talked to that member of the church, but I feel good now. Pastor just hugged me up. And I'm going to go over here and hug somebody else up. And it begins to bring a chain reaction in the body of Christ. So God used me for development. He developed me so that I could maintain the larger whole. And each of us have a part in our roles as members of this body of Christ to be able to be used or for development and maintain the larger whole. So the group. So everybody in here has one little piece, one part, but the way I touch the body of Christ is going to strengthen it. It's going to give the body of Christ something that they need. It's going to give them intimacy that we need. And so we've got to be functional. So let's look at 1 John chapter 4, 7 through 10. My beloved friends, let us continue to love each other, since love comes from God. Everyone who loves is born of God and experiences a relationship with God. When you've got love rolled up in there, it's going to be something that comes directly from God, and you will experience a relationship with Him. You lock into Him then. The person who refuses to love doesn't know. The person who refuses to love is dysfunctional, because the function that God has given us is to love Him and then love everybody else. So if I done decided I'm refusing to love, I'm dysfunctional, and I'm causing dysfunction all around me. So if I'm the head of a household, I'm the dad, and I'm coming in there and I don't want to love nobody, that's going to make the household not be full of love. Daddy ain't loving. No, I don't want to be bothered. It causes a chain reaction of dysfunctionality. And so, goes on to say that whoever refuses to love doesn't know the first thing about God, because God is love. So you can't know Him if you don't love. This is how God showed His love for us. God sent His only Son into the world so we might live through Him. This is the kind of love we are talking about. Not that we once upon a time loved God, but that He loved us and sent His Son as a sacrifice to clear away our sins and the damage they've done to our relationship with God. Sin damages our relationship with God. If we let sin run rampant in our lives, it damages our relationship with God. Because then we quit coming to church, we quit reading my Bible, because I got to do over here, I got to do this, and I really don't like the people at church now, because it's like, I remember they did something to me one time, and it just messed me up, and I don't want to go back over there. So you go out and sin. I'm going to go out, I feel like I need to do this now. The church, I could care less about it. So your relationship, when you walk away from the church, is damaged with God. Your relationship to God is damaged. Verse 13 through 16. This is how we know we're living steadily and deeply in Him, and He in us. He's given us life from His life. When a relationship is functional, there's a whole lot of giving. Yes. There's a whole lot of loving. I'm giving you whatever I got. Whatever I got, I want to share it with you. Because I got to give, because that's part of functionality, because that's what God did. And when I began to watch Him, I see how He gave His Son. his life for our life from his very own Spirit. Also, we've seen for ourselves and continue to state openly that the Father sent his Son as the Savior of the world. Everyone who confesses that Jesus is God's Son participates continuously. Can you get that again? Participates continuously. First, we got to participate continuously with him. When we stop loving God and we stop spending time with him, then we can't participate continuously in love down here. We're not consistent because there's something wrong. Participates continuously in an intimate relationship with God. We know it is so well. We've embraced it, heart and soul, this love that comes from God. And once you lock on to God in his relationship, the intimacy begins to flow. The closeness. And the closer I get to God, the closer I want to get to the body of Christ. The more I want to deal with the body of Christ. The more I want, it's like what I was talking about Sunday when God dropped it in my spirit that the men's meeting needs to begin again. And so I could just feel the men. I could feel them, because Brother Andy had said something a while back. Brother, I sure miss our men's meeting, and it was good. I kind of wish it, I know you got to do what God say, but I kind of miss it. And then as soon as I sent the email out, he was one of the first ones to reply, I got it. And once he got it, then he came and then I told him about bringing something to eat. He's the first one. I'm going to bring my muffins. I'm going to have the muffins. And then he came in this Sunday and he was, I can't wait. I'm so happy about this. So that's what happened. So you get the love, the embrace, and once I got the reply text back from the men, it's like God was wrapping his own arms around me. The words that they were saying, I got it. I told them, I said, when you get it, because I'm tired. I'm tired of sending out texts, because I'm not electronically inclined anyway. But when I send out a text on my old phone, I hope I can get somebody to say, I got it, Pastor. Pastor, I got it. But I had to specifically say this time, because I said, I don't want no empty, nothing come at you like you're sending a text out with all this love in it. And then it's like crickets. Nothing happened. I'm like, not this time. And I said, when y'all get this, I want every one of y'all to reply and say, I got it. That's all I need. You ain't got to say you come in. You just got to say, I got it. And I got them back. And they was texting back, and I said, that made me feel so good. And that's what we do when we begin to seek God. God's direction directed me to call the men's meeting. And then the love that came from y'all was strictly something that God had placed in y'all's heart. And I received it. And then y'all received my text to, get it started again. And so that's what we do. We're giving life to one another. It's an intimate relationship. And so we're trying to make sure that we keep everything inside this church functional. Next slide. 1 John chapter 2. And we got to be real sure. We got to know. The word tells us how to go and get this intimacy. Here's how we can be sure that we know God in the right way. When we get it right, in the right way, functionality. And when we lose functionality with God, it's not God, it's us being dysfunctional. It's the broken part. We become the broken part in the relationship. And so he can't get the relationship going if the broken part is sitting there, just like in my radio. It's not going to work because there's something inside that's not working. Something inside that's not coming together to lock on to the relationship. And this is how we can be sure that we know God in the right way. Keep his commandments. And a lot of times we think, well, if I'm reading the word all the time, that's intimacy. Oh, Lord, I'm close to you now. But what's going in? When you keep something, that means you lock onto it. You put it in a safe place, which is right here, right in my spirit, man. I'll lock it in. I keep it. I don't. None of God's word that comes my way, I soak onto it. I lock onto it. I saturate it because I gotta have it because I want to keep his commandments. I don't want to ever say, I know what the word said, but I did this. I don't ever want to say that. You can't just read. You've got to meditate, and you've got to keep his commandments with everything that you've got in you. I'm holding on to this. Verse 4 through 6. If someone claims, I know him well, put an exclamation mark on it. I know him well. A lot of Christians be saying that, but doesn't keep his commandments. How you going to know him well and you're not following his word? The word is right there in front of you. The word is going in. That means you're not keeping his commandments. He's obviously a liar. His life doesn't match his words. But the one who keeps God's word is the person in whom we see God's mature love. And the word in intimacy was developed. Every day, God's love, the intimacy with God, is developing us. It's growing us. And so when we look at it, he goes in whom the person in whom we see God's mature love. So that means that love is growing older. That love is maturing. And it's every single day, the love of God should be growing and maturing in us. And it shouldn't be something that we take for granted and say, well, no, I'm so sensitive. When I'm walking around in the house, I'm talking to him all the time. I mean, I'll be in there in the morning. When I get up in the morning, I say, oh, Lord, it's cold in here today. Woo, Pastor Shanks got me again. I'm good at that. I say, oh, Lord, what word do you want me to read today? What word do you want me to expound on today? What are you going to pour into me today? I'm talking the whole time when I'm in there. So if somebody heard me and said, who's in there with Pastor? Who are you in there talking to? Talking to my Lord. I'm talking to my God. I have intimacy with him. When you have intimacy, like First Lady said, when you have intimacy in your relationship, you talk all the time. We're walking down the mall and we just talking and laughing, having a good time, just expressing ourselves. Because when we sit down, we've seen couples that when they sit down, and we see this on a boat a lot when we go on the cruise. And I look sometimes and say, honey, they didn't even speak to each other. The whole time, they just ate. Listen, I can't do that. I got to have some conversation. I'm not a talker, but when I get with this woman, I open up because there's intimacy. There's a closeness. And when I'm with the men, I'm not a talker, but when I start talking, they get in the car with me, we're going to be talking the whole time. I'm finding out what's going on with them, what's wrong in their life, what's next, what's coming up on their life. I'm constantly talking. But then when it's time to shut up. I get by myself, but it's time to shut it down. But then I start talking to him. So I guess I am a talker. I talk myself into the soul, knowing I'm a talker. So you gotta know that. Intimacy. All right, where was that? Mature love. This is the only way to be sure we're in God. Anyone who claims to be intimate with God ought to live the same kind of life Jesus lived. God, that's a gauge right there. If your life is not imitating Jesus Christ in every aspect, every corner of my life, it's got to be. I'm not there, but I'm striving for it. I'm reaching out. I mean, I'm going for the prize because that's where I need to be. That's the only way I can get intimacy surrounding me in every part of my life. So intimate with God is the same kind of life Jesus lived. So that's what my intimacy is. The intimacy that God has with his son, the same intimacy he should have with us. And he's opening that door. And Jesus came down to show us, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. All you got to do is follow my example and develop. We talked about develop Sunday. It means to go through a process of natural growth and changes in order to make active, effective, and available for use. When we begin to develop intimacy in our relationships, growth takes place. Changes. Man, I used to be mad all the time. God, people make me so mad. But when I began to love on God, he started taking the edge off. He started taking off that nasty attitude. And I began to get up and walk around instead of frowning at folks. I began to smile. And and I'm still working on when people. I'm walking into work, and some people are just so busy walking. I don't walk as fast. Most times people are passing me up walking, so I'm just kind of going on. But I said I'm gonna start getting them. So they walking, and I can hear their feet coming beside me, and they, you think once they pass you, I say, good morning. And they, oh, good morning. Kind of catch them off guard. That's what you have to do. It puts them on guard, because now God is speaking through me to them. So it's the idea that I'm looking for a way in, an opportunity to touch somebody, because people be really in the morning, they be like, oh man, I don't want to be here. Good morning, and then someone will say good morning. Someone like, this morning, I got this morning. He was coming behind me, and he came beside me, and I said, good morning. He said, yeah, good morning. He barely got it out. Because it kind of may have startled him, because I said, good morning. But he gave me a good morning back. So, even if they don't say good morning, next time I see him, I'm going to good morning him again. I'm opening the door for him, whatever I got to do. But it's just the idea. Intimacy, even with those you don't know. You're reaching out, you're trying to do what you can, speaking to them, dropping a good morning on them, and opening the door for them. And so, some guys are so manly, they don't want you really to open the door for them. They kind of, when a guy kind of a little bit behind me, but I'm coming through the door behind me, and I'll hold the door sometimes. They be like, oh, yeah, man, okay, man. They really don't want you to do it. It's a man thing. So, but I get them anyway. But God is making us available. He's making us active, effective, and available for use in intimacy. When we say, I'm going to be intimate with you, God, you're going to say, okay, well, I'm going to use you. I'm going to make you active, effective, and you're going to be available. Even when somebody's walking in to work with you, you are available for use. And speak, open your mouth and say something to them. Next slide. I am the vine, you are the branches. This is Jesus talking. When you join with me and I with you, the relation intimate and organic, the harvest is sure to be abundant. I love that part. When we lock on to Jesus, the relation becomes intimate and organic. That's something Sister Cheryl been trying to get us to do a long time with the natural. Now God's showing us in the spiritual that this relationship should be intimate and organic. So that lets us know we should be eating something different than what we've been eating. And she agrees. And when you begin to get into an intimate, organic relationship, it's abundance. It's like when you put soil out, and it's laced with nutrients, and the plant begins to just bloom and flourish, and it begins abundantly, and plants growing all over the place. But that's what happens. God is trying to get us to produce something organic and intimate. So the harvest is sure to be abundant if we get this right. Separated, you can't produce a thing. Anyone who separates from me is dead wood, gathered up and thrown on the bonfire. But if you make yourselves at home with me and my words are at home in you, you can be sure that whatever you ask will be listened to and acted upon. Prayers. When we get into intimacy with God and we begin to speak to him and ask him for things, he begins to listen and he acts upon them. I'm going to get this for them. I'm going to take care of my son. I'm going to give them exactly what they want. This is what they need. They didn't need it a few years ago. They couldn't handle this. But now when they're in intimacy with me now, they can handle it. So I'm going to grant, I'm going to bless them now. So this is how my Father shows who he is. When you produce grapes, when you mature as my disciples. So we're producing fruit. When we begin to learn intimacy with everybody around us, when we begin to, it's a fruit that's coming out, but we got to mature as his disciples. We got to get lined up with his word, and then something begins to take place. Produce means to get ready and present. Give. God gave his only begotten Son. That's the only way we can learn intimacy. That's the only way we can learn what this relationship thing was all about. When he gave his son, he got him ready and he presented him to us. Here's my son. And it means to yield, to surrender, or submit to another. And we got to be yielding. That's the only way we're going to produce fruit. By yielding. giving up everything that I am so that God can come in and do the greater good and work inside of me. Developed. Last slide. Now, this is Jesus. He's out ministering, and he's talking to the people. And verse 20, Jesus had one disposition that's different from the rest of the chapter. He had to come out strong, and this is why in verse 20. Next, Jesus let fly. In other words, he kind of went off on them just a little bit. Next, Jesus let fly on the cities where he had worked the hardest, but whose people have responded the least, shrugging their shoulders and going their own way. And so he was like, I'm telling y'all the greatest news that you'll ever hear. I'm telling you, I'm trying to tell you how to get saved, and y'all just, you're turning me away, you're kicking me aside. I'm going to be giving my life for y'all, and y'all just going your own way, and I don't. And he kind of went off a little bit on him. He said he let it fly on him. So he's like, okay. He said he don't understand. So, but he only feels that way because intimacy. Yeah. He's trying to get intimate with him, and they're keeping a distance. Back off. No, I don't want to hear it. I can't do that. No, I don't want to hug you. I don't like hugging. You know, and some people say that, but I be on them. You know, but I try to respect them, you know, but before they know it, if they don't answer quick enough, they're going to be hugged. That's intimacy. But, so he went off on them. And so, verse 25 and 26, abruptly, Jesus broke into prayer. Thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth. You've concealed your ways from sophisticates and know-it-alls, but spelled them out clearly to ordinary people. Yes, Father, that's the way you like to work. When you're in intimacy, you know what makes somebody tick. You know how they do things. You say, yeah, I know that. Yeah, that's it. I know, because I seen you do it. He knew it. I know the way. That's the way you like to work. Intimacy. You can, sometimes, I don't know if we've done it recently, but sometimes I'm saying a word and she finishing the sentence. But it's like that's just part of how we connected. And it's a tight connection. And nothing can get in. That's why we try to make sure that we're just pleasing one another. And first pleasing him. Once we please God, all this comes in the line. The intimacy comes in the line. So, the Father has given me all. Okay, hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself. Verse 27. Jesus resumed talking to the people after he finished praying. Jesus resumed talking to the people, but now tenderly he began to talk to them. He said, okay, I went off a little bit. I will kind of bring it down a little bit. Told them how I felt. They can do whatever they want to do. I can't change that. But there's some here who are listening. There's some here who are looking for intimacy. So then that's when his tone of voice changed. Now I'm talking to these over here who are listening, who are getting it, who are understanding that this is a real relationship. This is what intimacy is about. I've never knew about loving a God like this. And this is a God in heaven who created the universe and all the stars and everything and create everything in life. And he wants to be intimate with me. And he sent his son down here to tell us this. My God. So, but now tenderly, he's talking to the other people. The Father has given me all these things to do and say. This is a unique Father-Son operation. A unique Father-Son operation. So they operating together. And when you have a relationship that's operating intimacy, you have an operation going on. We have a wife-husband operation. I have a daddy-daughter relationship that's operating. And I have a pastor, spiritual son that's going on. And we work and we operating. And intimacy is going all over the place. We come in here, we smile, and we laughing, even though we're tired, but we see each other's face and we just glow because of intimacy. So, Father-Son operation, coming out of Father and Son intimacy. So, Let me go back and start it over. This is a unique father-son operation, coming out of father and son intimacies and knowledge. So through that father-son operation, coming out of that is intimacies and knowledge. So that's what we get. Because Jesus and his Father, our Heavenly Father, operating together, we get intimacies and knowledge. Those are products that come from intimacy. Those are products that come from the Father-Son operation. So something is coming out, it's like a machine. It's just pouring out. Because they're operating well together, we receive the benefit of it. And so it's coming out, and we need that. We got to have that. No one knows the Son the way the Father does, nor the Father the way the Son does. But I'm not keeping it to myself. I've got to produce, I've got to give out, I can't hold all of this. I got to give out my love. I know I love my wife and I'm loving the body of Christ, but there's people out there who don't know this kind of love, who don't know this type of intimacy. And I've got to be able to give them, I can't hold it all in. Because every time I get with my Father, he's pouring in more. And when I walk out that door in the house in the morning, you know, I'm probably not saying this, but I'm thinking it in a way. Who can I love on? Who can I talk to? Who can I be intimate with and talk to, and then show them the love of Christ? And so you go out and you're trying to produce something and give it out. Can't hold it in. And it says, but I'm not keeping it to myself. I'm ready to go over it line by line with anyone willing to listen. That's what he said. Anyone who's willing to listen. And sometimes we try to get discouraged because sometimes people don't want to really listen. They don't want you to touch them. They don't want you to speak to them. But you know what? It don't discourage me. It don't shut me down. Because one day they're gonna need somebody, and they're gonna think back. I remember that guy at NASA. He was always smiling and so nice, and I used to never would talk to him, and I just ignored him. Wonder where he is now. Wonder where he is now. And then, you know, nowadays you can find people on Facebook and say, okay, I'm gonna go. He's over there at Ministry of Encouragement Church in Dickinson. I want to see, because he made me feel good. And that's what we do. So it's an operation that we're working on, you know, we're pulling people out. Now, let's get into this verses 28 through 30. I told y'all before, this is my favorite, one of my favorite scriptures. Matthew 11, 28 through 30. And the Message Bible put it out in such a special way, and I love it. I never read it in the Message Bible, but we're about to read it now. Are you tired? Worn out? Burned out on religion? If you're practicing religion, yes. You're burned out on it. You're tired. You're worn, you can't do nothing else. You're just like, I'm religious and I'm tired. That's what happens. You get tired being religious. Good Lord, you know, you got to let it go. And so Jesus came to show us, you don't need religion. You need a relationship. You need intimacy. You need a closeness to the Father. And that's going to take away all your tiredness, take away all your aches and pain, take away all those things that you've been hanging on to all these years. But it says, to get it, come to me. Get away with me, and you will recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest, and we need a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. Woo! The unforced rhythms of grace. I don't force myself on me, and God didn't force his Son upon us. He didn't force himself upon us. But it's a rhythm to it. But it's something that we go through life, and we have a rhythm. Because we're in a Father, Son, we're a product of the Father and Son operation. And so once we see that, the unforced rhythms of grace begin to move all around us and touch everybody who is within distance of God's unforced rhythm of grace. I love that word. I love that sentence. And Jesus goes on to say, I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Good Lord. I love those words. Those words light me up. And the intimacy that as he's shown us, is so special. and it's something that makes it light and free for us. And sometimes it just takes all the pressure off. And I can sit down and I read those scriptures, or I just think on those scriptures about him taking all the heavy weights and labors weighs off me and thoughts, pulling it all off. And he take it and he say, now you can have my yoke. My yoke is light. My yoke is easy to carry. And come on with me. And so that's intimacy. That's what he does. He's giving us intimacy. Relationship has to have intimacy. That's the only way it's going to survive and be functional. And we're looking for a functional relationship. Every relationship in here should be functional. You probably say, well, do I interface with them? Well, I don't hardly ever talk to brother such and such. Well, go over there and talk to him. Find him. You know, go over there and say, hey, how you doing? I never hardly get over here to you. Because this church is going to be just, people are going to be everywhere. And we got to touch everybody. We got to have some form of relationship with them, and it's going to be a form of intimacy. So we got to give out. We got to be able to come in and just wrap our arms around people, even though it may feel uncomfortable sometimes. But that's what Jesus did, and he's showing us. And like I said, and sometimes he had to kind of, they said Jesus, I can't remember the words, that he, on the fly, he came at him, and he had to kind of say something, and then he said, okay, I know y'all get this, so let's talk about this. That's what it is. So intimacy is like a relationship on steroids. It's gone. It's out of here.
Yeah.
So that's what we gotta have. We gotta have every relationship that we got, you be taken off, flying into heavenly places. Because it's gonna save some souls.